CDC is putting out a warning about a devastating disease that is
with
on
the
the
blood
rise.
disorder. Her sister lives it, and her brother died from it.
Shorten someone's lifespan by more than 2 decades.
It can rob you of your confidence, your self-confidence.
Sickle cell is probably going to kill me one day.
This new treatment could cost as much as $2 million. And
Sickle Cell Anemia, it's a blood disorder that affects mostly African Americans. It can cause severe pain.
Receiving detailed DNA information from your parents is the base of your life. It stores essential genetic codes necessary to begin your life. These genetic codes pass life-forming information to your cells and make them learn on how to reproduce, grow, and build essential proteins. DNA is actually a blueprint of your life. But sometimes, the DNA that makes your life possible can carry defective genetic codes to the cells, which make cells behave abnormally and contribute to several deadly diseases.
The blood with sickle-shaped.
A healthy red blood cell typically acquires a rounded shape and supplies adequate oxygen to the body tissues. But when you are diseased with sickle cells, many of your red blood cells change their shape like a crescent moon. When this happens, a sickle-shaped red blood cell falls short on oxygen and consequently fails to supply sufficient oxygen to your organs, resulting in widespread organ damage. These sickle cells can't move freely into tiny blood vessels and clump together, causing the blockage of the life-saving flow of red blood cells. The blocked path of RBC sparks excruciating pain, and if pain medicines don't mitigate the condition, you may end up in an emergency department. Healthy red blood cells live up to 90 to 120 days, but cells resembling a sickle have a shortened lifespan of about 20 days. The early deaths of sickle cells cause a severe form of anemia. In the worst scenario, sickle cell disease can cause a sickle cell crisis in which stroke, acute chest syndrome, recurrent infections, vision loss, and premature death are common. This disorder predominantly affects people of Black ancestry. In America alone, nearly 100,000 people are fighting this deadly disease, most of whom historically belong to African origin. About 80% of all SCD patients live in sub-Saharan Africa. If this disease is so deadly, how can you recognize if you have developed sickle cell disease? Okay, you are about to explore the most common and early symptoms of sickle cell disease. Sickle cell anemia, recognizing the symptoms. The symptoms of sickle cell anemia normally appear for the first time when a newborn reaches 5 to 6 months of age. Every individual reacts to the disease differently. The degree of severity and the relapse frequency greatly vary from person to person. To better understand what symptoms people usually have during the crisis of sickle cell anemia, drsebijournal interviewed Helena Cardosa, a top sickle cell expert in Washington. She helped us understand how symptoms of sickle cell anemia manifest. Here's some parts of the interview.
I always feel agonizing whenever I see an SCD patient approaching me with a wild pain.
It's consistent, it's sharp.
It is so heartbreaking. In my 23 years of being an SCD expert, I have observed that the pain is an everyday struggle in most SCD patients. It is common in sickle cell disease to deal with headache, chest pain, painful penis erection, abdominal pain, bone and joint pain. Let me tell you, most SCD patients who come here deal with a great degree of swelling on their hands and feet. Pale skin is also common, which indicates the presence of jaundice. Fever is another symptom people usually get during the crisis of SCD. The patients with sickle cells are anemic and debilitated. If your child relatively has slow body growth, it may be a sign of sickle cells. Frequent relapse of infection is also common in SCD patients.
The hard-to-tackle pain is not a mere concern for patients with sickle cell anemia. The standard set in the society makes it a stigmatic disease.
There are levels and levels of discrimination and stigma where people are even afraid to actually talk about it.
It affects
pretty much every aspect of my life. How could it not? It affects dating. It affects friendships when my friends assume that I don't want to hang out with them and I'm just using my illness as an excuse. That actually hurts really bad.
Sickle cell disease is in no way contagious, yet most SCD patients face social exclusion. People consider them untouchable, and because it is strongly associated with the Black community, racism is almost always the issue. Why the early diagnosis of sickle cell disease is important? This is because sickle cell anemia comes with significant risk factors if it remains undiagnosed. According to a report from CDC, sickle cell anemia causes a considerable reduction in your total life expectancy, perhaps more than 20 years. My intention is not to inject fear in you, but that's the sad truth about this disease. Sickle cells can impair nearly all vital organs of your body, including the heart, lungs, kidneys, eyes, liver, gallbladder, and brain. Early diagnosis gives you an opportunity to access early treatment, and the early treatment of sickle cell diseases can dramatically prevent premature death and the onset of dangerous complications. With the proper treatment, most children live into adulthood without any complications. What Dr. Sebi has to say about sickle cell disease. Dr. Sebi narrated sickle cell anemia as a disease that can manifest if a person is deficient in iron. Dr. Sebi testifies that when a person is poorly deprived of iron, the blood plasma is broken down into a sickle shape and causes dozens of complications. You may be iron deficient for a bunch of reasons, but the top factor that contributes to iron deficiency is not eating iron-rich foods. Dr. Sebi believed that getting the proper nutrition from food can cure any disease, and sickle cell anemia is not an exception. Dr. Sebi claimed to have a cure for sickle cell anemia, and he proved it before the apex court. Dr. Sebi broadly advocated the assimilation of herbs to counter sickle cell anemia. Burdock root holds an incredible amount of iron and other substances essential for healing sickle cell anemia. According to a statement made by Dr. Sebi, all plants that concentrate on iron can help through the process of healing SCD.
Tonight, the FDA has just approved a groundbreaking treatment, a cure for sickle cell disease that uses gene editing technology.
Experts argue the cost puts it out of reach for many families. The price tag is $2.2 million.
Yes, the news is correct. A cure for sickle cell anemia has been discovered by modern science, but the sad news is that most people in the USA can't afford the cure. It is only available to only a few USA family. Thanks for watching the video this far. Please like, share, and subscribe our channel.